Welcome back to The Realness, ladies and gents. It's time to get deep like a baby seal. I'm your host, Shanghai Pete, the people's champion, 21st century digital boy, high-tech lowlife, and your very good buddy in the mix. The world is falling apart and the video game industry, well, it's not much better. And that means we've got work to do. So, once again, it's about time we got deep inside. Just time for a quick recap of the week, and let's start with a brief check-in on my Elden Ring progress. At this point, I'm like level 109, think about 130 hours played, just finished the Randy quest line, and I'm on my way to hunt down Michaela, I think, in that big tree. I've been rocking a Crucible Knight Confessor build with plus 10 Blasphemous Blade from Rykard, and damn, that thing fucks. The Taker's Flames, I think, is the name of the skill on it. It's a fucking rapist. I'm having so much fun. This game is really goddamn good. I hope the rest of you all are still enjoying it as well. Next up, just a bit of miscellany. First, yes, I did see the Witcher announcement. No, I don't care. I love The Witcher 3 like anybody else, but this is the same thing as that GTA 6 so-called announcement from a few weeks ago. It's not fucking news. Of course CDPR is making a new Witcher game. Of course Rockstar is making another GTA game. Well, I guess. Now, maybe not so much concerning that ridiculous online service they just announced, but I mean, like, what did you think that they stopped needing to make money? Of course they're making these games. So now we've got an official announcement. Hooray, see you in 2030. Give me a trailer, hell, a teaser, a release date, a release timeline, even a screenshot for fuck's sake, a couple pixels. Like an announcement of something we all knew was happening anyway, it just doesn't cut it. I'm sorry, but you're gonna need to actually do something if you want to impress me. Oh wait, it is using the Unreal 5 engine instead of the Red engine, so, well, fuck me, stop the presses, boys. And speaking of being impressed, quick sidebar here about something I am not impressed by, especially since it was just pushed back all the way into next year. Breath of the Wild 2. Am I the only one who is not looking forward to this at all? Why are people tolerating a game that just reuses the same worlds as the previous game? So much of the enjoyment of a game, especially a Zelda game, is the discovery of new places, the exploration. And like, yes, I get that there's supposedly some stupid floating islands or whatever, but come on, how much of that do you really think there's gonna be? An entire overworld map's worth? Yeah, I doubt it. Imagine if Bethesda came out and said, surprise, Elder Scrolls 6 is actually Skyrim 2 and it's using the same map. How would y'all feel about that? Would anybody tolerate that? Yeah, I doubt it. I wouldn't. So why is it okay that Breath of the Wild 2 is reusing the same Hyrule from the first Breath of the Wild? Why does Nintendo get a pass? I have no idea, and I don't understand it. Nintendo's such a weird fucking company. They're always like vacillating wildly between doing something fucking awesome and then doing like the most reprehensible anti-consumer ballsack that anybody has ever heard of. One minute they're dropping like Metroid Dread, which is fantastic, but then the next they're suing the piss out of some poor dude running a Nintendo game music channel. What gives? Shit's psychopathy. Who does this? Fuck you, Nintendo. Well, I mean, until you put out another legendary 9 or 10 game, anyway. And lastly, let's just take a moment to complain about Twitter. Earlier today, I was sitting down to start work, setting up a YouTube playlist, and first thing that comes up is a video from a political pundit I watch pretty regularly. Normally, I like this guy's stuff. I tend to agree with him on many things, but today, the first thing that I'm greeted with is an almost 20-minute video where he's whinging about how his fucking Twitter account was temporarily suspended. Motherfucker, I don't give a good goddamn about your fucking Twitter account. I watch you to learn about politics and like the news of the day, not listen to you whine about how you're too important to have your Twitter account suspended and give your ego a hand job. Watching people freak out over the Twitter accounts is seriously some of the most pathetic, insufferable shit that I have to see almost every day. The way that so many of these blue checkmark fuckboys think that they're entitled to this virtual soapbox from which to spew their nonsense is insane. Political pundits, access media, sycophants, politicians, actors, e-celebrities, influencers, whatever. Makes me want to drown myself. You are not that important. The world will not stop turning because your Twitter account got suspended and no one can read your latest 100 characters of myopic, brain-dead, narcissistic whining. People love to think that Twitter is so crucial. I've mentioned this in videos in the past, but like barely 2% of the entire US population even posts on Twitter. For fuck's sake, nobody cares, you are not special, and your opinions are neither insightful nor interesting. Certainly not necessary. God, I fucking hate that shit. Moving on for our main story tonight, let's talk about the ignominious death of yet another proud franchise, Gran Turismo. Jesus, are we at fucking 7 already? How the fuck old am I? Anyway, my slow decline notwithstanding, seems once again customers of the gaming industry are very upset. Shock. Yep, looks like another long-running beloved franchise goes down, brought low by the complete destruction only vulgar and completely unrestrained greed can provide. How comforting. Oh heavens, what happened, you might be asking? Did they fuck up some crucial design element? Are they missing some classic cars or tracks? Are some of the gameplay systems broken or bugged in a way that makes them unplayable? Oh no, it actually doesn't have anything to do with the gameplay itself. Seems Sony just once again got a bit too greedy and fucked and drowned it in manipulative, exploitative, microtransaction excrement. What a wonderful industry, huh? I wonder what Access Media had to say about this. I wonder if perhaps that they agreed with customers who actually bought the game with real money and were upset because they felt they'd been ripped off by a rampant exploitative horror show of deception and greed. I wonder if they also agreed that this kind of blatant rapacious exploitation in the guise of a video game is egregious, offensive, and utterly inimical to a healthy gaming industry. Oh, would you look at that? Surprise, surprise. Seems they found it in their hearts to overlook all that and decided that they felt it would be both professionally and morally acceptable to proactively recommend that you spend your money on it, even though they didn't have to, despite all those somewhat glaring issues. Now, maybe some people might try to defend them and say, oh no, they didn't know about that when they reviewed it. The devs kept the worst parts of the economic manipulation and bullshit out of the review copies. Oh, okay. So once they found out, did they issue any retractions? Any updates or clarifications? Oh, they didn't! Oh no. And how about the people that spent their hard-earned money on it? How did they feel about it? Oh, whoops! Not so good, huh? Gee, what could possibly account for such a massive discrepancy, do you think? Guess the game journalists just have a sincere, honest, and principled disagreement, right? Wrong. They're fucking duplicitous, disingenuous, egotistical fuckboys who only give a shit about one thing, doing what they're told so they keep making as much money as possible. If you can find another explanation for a score discrepancy this fucking wild, I'm happy to hear it, but spoiler alert, there isn't one. See, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but the video game industry is a business. It's not your personal toy box. The only thing that it wants is your money. It doesn't want to sell you a fun game, it wants your money. And they're gonna get it using the cheapest means possible, whatever that happens to be. Even if doing so might, I don't know, kill off a franchise for a while or even permanently because they only care about a franchise or IP as much as it makes them money. When giving you something fun is the cheapest way to get your money, they do that. When giving you an exploitative mobile game is the cheapest way to get your money, well then they do that. Which one they're selling you, it doesn't matter to them at all. Of course, there's exceptions here and there. The rare AAA company that seems to employ actual human beings with feelings and genuine passions for art and creative expression, and obviously all the absolutely fantastic, brilliant indie devs that are out there. But those are all exceptions, certainly not the rule. Activision Blizzard, Bungie, Polyphony Digital, and devs like them, they're functionally no different from companies like Walmart, Apple, or Coca-Cola. Just because they sell video games and not sugar water or iPhones doesn't mean that they're suddenly altruistic and beneficent. They're all just trying to maximize profits, minimize costs however they possibly can. They all just sell products. What the product is doesn't matter. It matters to you, but it does not matter to them. Whether they're selling you cleaning supplies, shoes, games, candy bars, it's all the same to them. I feel like so many people make the mistake of thinking that because the company is selling you something that you have fun with, that they must care whether or not it's actually fun. That they must, for some reason, give a fuck if you like it. They do not. They care about whether or not you have fun with their game as much as Amazon cares if you enjoy a book that you bought from them, meaning not at all. They only care that you bought it, and then a certain percentage of people who did will also get hooked on their microtransactions. They care about their bottom line, not your experience or satisfaction. And if they can trick you into adding more to their bottom line at the expense of your experience and satisfaction, then they'll definitely do that. And they certainly don't give a shit if you drop its user score to something like, 1.5, let's say. They used to, but only because they had to. In 1995, if a game wasn't genuinely fun, no one would buy it. And the company selling it wouldn't make money. Hence, games had to be fun. They weren't fun because they cared. They were fun because they had to be. As I've pointed out so many times before, that's no longer the case. It's now cheaper to simply trick you into believing it'll be fun, and by the time the average consumer notices they're not having fun, they're hooked on the manipulative gameplay systems, so brainwashed by social media that they don't care, or their kids are spending the cost of the game 100 times over on freemium mechanics. See, before gaming as an industry blew up, probably about 90% of a game's budget went to development costs and the rest to marketing, because that's what it took to make a game that was good enough to compete in the market. Now it doesn't matter how good a game is. So what's the first thing they do? Cut out dev time and replace it with microtransactions. Implementing them costs less than building real game systems and earns far in excess of the base cost of a game. Now you might think that because Gran Turismo 7 is getting horrible user scores, that means it's not making them money. Wrong. It's the opposite. The people giving it poor user scores aren't its target audience. Its target audience is too busy spending their parents' money on microtransactions to give a fuck what its user score is. Of course, I don't know the actual numbers, but how many days of how many households' microtransactions do you think that it takes to make up for one unsold copy? My guess would be barely an hour of gameplay from a single household. It's just the plain simple truth. You don't matter anymore. That's not to say that you shouldn't keep review bombing the fuck out of monstrous anti-consumer non-games like Gran Turismo 7. You should. Just that you shouldn't expect it to really make a difference unless it gets like really out of fucking hand. And, you know, as we all know, that's extremely unlikely. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't try. It's just my job to be real with you, unfortunately. You see, the industry is so big now that people like us that, care about gaming as a hobby or an art form, people that are sincerely critical of them, we make up only a small percentage of the customer base. Whereas before it went mainstream, we counted for easily 80% probably. Now that number is likely somewhere around 15 or 20%, which means what, class? That's right, that we're no longer the target audience and thus no longer marketed to or catered to. Just look at a game like Gran Turismo 7. If we were the people that were the majority of their customer base, obviously it wouldn't have been made the way that it is because those people fucking hate it. See, the majority of their customer base is now comprised of the same average regular people that have been fooled into watching the new low-effort, mass-produced MCU garbage of recent years. And those people, bless their little hearts, are very easily manipulated and susceptible to the same cheap, low-level mechanics and algorithmic mobile-style gameplay design that most people are. So, what does that mean to your average company? Well, those of you with MBAs are probably ahead of me here, but basically what that means is that budgets can now be slashed to the fucking bone, any shortfalls more than made up for by microtransactions, and picky bam, all the newly created surplus is redirected to the same place all corporations funnel as much money as possible, shareholders and top-level management. You think the possibility of little Billy having a bad time with his new Gran Turismo game is gonna stop a CEO from cutting budgets and making moves that'll net them another $20 million in stock options? Come on, geez. Don't be fucking naive, of course not. Especially when even though little Billy might not be having a good time, he's still swiping his mom's credit card to buy enough virtual cars to equal the amount of 10 or 20 actual fans would have spent on base copies of the game. They don't need you anymore, and you're being treated accordingly. Just take a look at what they put in the games that they sell you. It tells you everything you need to know. Next, let's look back at Final Fantasy VII Remake just for a moment. See, there's just no world where you can present something like an episodic model of an RPG that's already been released as a single game as anything but a shameless, avaricious, anti-consumer cash grab. There's simply no logical reason or justification for why they couldn't have made the entire game into a single package. None. After all, that's how it was originally in fucking 1997 or whatever. And it's not like new games aren't constantly being released that are larger by several orders of magnitude than the entirety of the original Final Fantasy VII. So don't even try to give me that bullshit either. Think of every single modern JRPG released over the past decade or so, at least. The people trying to defend this act like no 40-plus hour RPGs have been released in the past 10 or 15 years. It's fucking retarded. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is being released in an episodic format because a gigantic multi-million-dollar remake of one of the biggest games of all time is just too big of an opportunity for profits to waste on a single one-shot release for $60. You can make either $60 off every customer one time, or you can make $60 to $70 off every customer, a minimum of 5 or 6 times, probably more. Which is the higher number? That's all you need to know. It may not be what a small indie developer fueled by the genuine, sincere passions of a few dedicated developers would do, but it's absolutely the type of thing a business that exists solely for the reasons of earning profit would do, also known as Square Enix, Sony, or Polyphony Digital, just to name a few. Let's just do a thought experiment really quick. Imagine you're the CEO of a game company and your current big title typically has a budget of 100 million. Game ends up pulling in about 500 mil net revenue minus 100, and your profit is 400. Pretty simple, right? Making money, all good here, right? Wrong. You're thinking like a regular person, not a CEO. See, a corporation has a fiduciary obligation to its investors and shareholders, not just to make money, but to make all of the money, to make as much money as possible through whatever means necessary. So if you've got a product that your customers are enjoying and is making the company profit, but your data analyst team rolls in and says that they've determined you can actually cut the budget in half and your profits won't decrease, but actually increase and by a lot, that's what you do. It's what you're obligated to do. And if you don't do it, you'll likely be removed and replaced with someone who will. See, a CEO doesn't care if slashing a game's budget makes for a shit product, as long as the numbers guys have assured them that it won't affect the balance sheet. Unfortunately for those of us that are genuine fans of games, it has been discovered that these days, 100 million spent developing and marketing a fun game actually makes less money than a game where the fun is replaced with exploitative systems and mechanics from a mobile game that can be made for less than half the cost. So, if making Gran Turismo 7 fun would cost 100 million and net a profit of 400 million, but making it a mess of microtransactions would cost only 50 million, net a profit of 450 million plus profits for microtransactions, what the fuck you think they're gonna do? Oh no, let's not do the option where we get more money because people might not like it? Fuck you. Gran Turismo 7 sucks because it had to. It's not an excuse or justification, it's simply a fact. A sad fact. And lastly, since this just came out, let's take a look at the recent dev response to all the backlash. And yo, the gang is all fucking here. They're playing all the hits. Check this out. We've got the "we know this is not what you expect," as well as the always lovely "your voices have not gone unheard," and of course the classic non-apology "we apologize for the confusion." And not, of course, "we apologize for ripping you off," because obviously they do not. Just look at all the effort they're willing to go to just so they can keep fucking you. Now, let's break it down. So, naturally, we've got all the normal disingenuous swill offering half-hearted pseudo-apologies and weak excuses, dripping with contempt for their customers. Thank you for your continued support and feedback of Gran Turismo 7. Your voices have not gone unheard. I would like to apologize for the frustration and confusion caused last week with our patch updates, which resulted in not only a server outage, but also adjustments to the in-game economy, which were made without a clear explanation to our community. Oh, so that's the issue. There just wasn't a clear explanation. Okay, alright, no problem then, please. By all means then explain. They say the patch update previously deployed was intended to rectify an issue with inconsistent reward payouts within a part of the World Circuit events, but to re-establish the intended equilibrium and provide more accurate rewards based on time investment and completion, it was necessary to recalculate the reward system as a whole. To improve the player experience, we will be rolling out a considerable patch in the beginning of April. Oh, okay. So you see, guys, it wasn't that they were intentionally trying to take you for all you're worth with an inherently exploitative game economy. No, they just wanted to rectify an issue with inconsistent rewards. That's fine then. They just had to reestablish the intended equilibrium. Certainly sounds perfectly reasonable and not like an obtuse collection of nonsense words designed to confuse you even further. So, what are you guys gonna do about it then? We know that this is not the Gran Turismo experience you expect, and we will be making a goodwill gesture. Ha ha. Oh, Oh, what's this? A goodwill gesture, huh? Well, my, what a pleasant surprise. What form will this vaunted goodwill gesture take? Are they perhaps removing all the shit microtransactions? Are they fixing the in-game economy back to pre-exploitation era levels? Are they maybe reconsidering the entire live service aspect of the game? Oh, no? Oh, they're giving you some in-game credits to further incentivize you engaging with all their manipulative anti-consumer game systems. Oh, well, how much then? It's a good amount, right? You're gonna give us a lot of credits. This says here they'll be giving everyone 1 million credits. Wow. Oh, wow, that sounds like a lot, right? How much is that worth? About $10. They're giving you $10 so that you can give it right back to them in exchange for a bunch of polygons that cost them nothing to begin with. Such boundless generosity. $10 fucking, huh? Well, that totally makes up for everything. Problem solved. Anything else? To further improve the player experience, we'll be rolling out a considerable patch in the beginning of April. The number of events will be increased, and we will re-establish the reward system with a greater balance throughout the game to benefit all players. Okay, I believe we'll be rolling out a patch, but everything else here is just a straight up lie. The goal of the patch is not to improve the player experience. The reward system will not be given a greater balance throughout the game, and nothing here will be of benefit to all players. Shut the fuck up. Also, keep in mind, this patch is intended to go live in the beginning of April. But the game has been out since March 4th, which means that they already will have had a minimum of a month from which to rape everyone's wallet. And we all know that that's when most sales are made. They finish up by saying, "We want to thank you for your continued patience and valuable feedback as we grow and evolve GT7 to make it as enjoyable and rewarding for as many players as possible. We also want to keep communication lines open with our community so that we can work together to build the best racing experience possible." No, you don't. No, you're not. No, you won't. And no, you aren't. Fuck all the way off. This is what they think of you guys. They blatantly try to exploit and rob you for every single fucking cent that they think that they can get away with. And when you notice, they throw out a carefully cultivated, insulting, and vacuous PR blog post and then bribe you with a measly $10 fucking that can only be spent on the worthless microtransactions that they were supposed to be apologizing for to begin with. The problem isn't that the microtransactions are too expensive, it's that they even exist in the fucking first place. And they know that. They just don't care. They never did. Video games are a business, just like Walmart and Amazon. Endless commodification of everything means that no matter what the industry, field, market, or business, if it's more profitable, it wins. The balance sheet doesn't give a fuck how it's done. And the developers that spend the least to make the games that profit the most drown out the rest of the industry, forcing ones that don't to either follow suit or die. When any money not spent on production goes right into your pockets as the CEO, expecting a company to deliver something fun instead of something profitable is expecting them not only to risk their job, but also to voluntarily pay themselves less money. And that's fucking retarded, and that's exactly what happened with Gran Turismo 7, and what's going to continue happening with all other huge AAA games like this. You gotta stop being surprised by it. Okay, that's our show. Thank you so much for watching, spending this little bit of your free time with us here tonight. We love you today. We love you all the way. Kind of a depressing one today. I'm sorry about that, but you know what they say. Industry gone industry. For those Gran Turismo fans out there, man, I truly hope the backlash is big enough so that they walk some of this back, at least enough to do something more than giving you a $10 coupon and give you the game that you deserve, one you can actually enjoy, but I think we all know how likely that is. As I've said, the negative response may look big from where we're at, but from the perspective of Sony's balance sheets, I would expect it's probably making them more money than any previous entry in the series already. This is 2005 and Gran Turismo 4 we were talking about, totally different story. But back then, the games industry was much smaller, and diehard fans who actually want to play the game and not buy progress in it made up far more of their customer base than they do now. I hate to say it, but this is why gatekeeping niche hobbies is kind of a common reaction. People know that the more an audience is diluted by your average consumers who don't really care about the hobby, IP, or franchise, the more the impetus to put out a truly quality product declines. In an ideal world, one not utterly dominated by late-stage disaster capitalism, of course it would be preferable to embrace anyone and everyone who displayed even a cursory interest in something fun. But that's not the world we live in, and, well, that fucking sucks.
Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I back down.